Hello, 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 hello. My name is Claire. Welcome back to my channel, Cool Claire ASMR. I feel like it's been a couple weeks since I talked to you guys. I hope you're doing okay. I just want to chill out tonight and talk about books, so lean back a little bit, just in my bed. Got my squish friend, Squishmallows. I forgot what these are called. Anyway, tonight I specifically want to talk about books that are nostalgic for me because we recently did a lot of cleaning out of the office in my house, and a lot of my childhood books were in there, so I thought it would be cool that we could look at my, I would say, more teenage years or like middle school, but all these books hold a level of nostalgia for me, and I thought it would be fun to show them to you all. And if we're close in age, then they might also hold some nostalgia for you as well. So the first I have here is Beyond the Spiderwick Chronicles, but I more specifically want to talk about the Spiderwick Chronicles themselves, because that was more the series that I read all of, but I checked them out from the library, so this is the only book related to that series that I own. But I think the Spiderwick Chronicles are severely underrated as a children's fantasy series. It did get its own movie, but I feel like it could have been a whole series of movies and not just all the books crammed into one movie. I thought they really kind of ripped it off. But the original series is about 3 kids, 2 twin brothers and an older sister, that move into a house that has this like mysterious like parallel world of monsters and magical creatures that bleed into it. I think that's fairly accurate. It's been a while since I read them. This book's cover's pretty cool though. Got 2 kids looking at this like sea monster. And then on the back is like this, it says "Save my sisters" right there. But did anybody else read this series? Big fan of that. Another series that I read as a child was the Golden Compass series. That also got kind of a poor movie delivery, because the Golden Compass movie is like really good, but I think it was the Catholic Church that shut down the series because of witchcraft, themes of witchcraft or something like that, which is hilarious to think about now, all the things that get made, and I don't know, like this actually got remade into a TV show that's out now. But this, if you're not familiar, is about, I think she's an orphan girl named Lyra who kind of gets chosen to go on this quest to find out about dust, and they have like their animal soul counterparts. And she rides a polar bear. Lyra Balakwa is content to run wild among the scholars of Jordan College with her demon familiar always by her side. But the arrival of her fearsome uncle, Lord Asriel, draws her to the heart of a terrible struggle. A struggle born of gobblers and stolen children, witch clans, and armored bears. As she hurtles towards danger in the cold, far north. Cold, far north, very chilly. Lyra never suspects the shocking truth. She alone is destined to win or to lose this more than mortal battle. Right, she is like the chosen one, and the golden compass is like the fact that she can use it is like an indicator of that. And she can befriend the armored bears who are feared. This is one that I need to reread. But yeah, the show is called His Dark Materials, which is after the actual series name. The first book is just The Golden Compass. Next I have Mary Downing Hahn, The Old Willis Place. And this is a children's horror novel. And this author writes all sorts of these books, and I think I read just about every single one that she has written. I was very obsessed with these ghost stories. I had a couple others, but I just wanted to show this one because this is the first one I remember reading about ghost children that kind of realize that they're dead when this little girl moves in. And I actually read this one in class in like the 5th grade, I believe. And then after that I was like, oh my gosh, this book is so good. I must read them all. This says, Diana and her little brother Georgie have been living in the woods behind the old Willis Place, a decaying mansion, for what seems like forever. A strict set of rules won't allow them to leave the property or even show themselves to anyone. But when a new caretaker and his young daughter, Lisa, come to live there, Diana is tempted to break the mysterious rules for the first time in hopes of making a new friend. She and Georgie learn quickly, though, that breaking the rules can have deadly consequences. I just remember it being like a big reveal that they're actually ghost children, but like looking at this as an adult, it's like pretty obvious that's what it is. I feel like it was pretty obvious to like us as a class though, because when they revealed it, I feel like I remember a kid being like, I knew it, I knew they were ghosts. I like that kind of, do you like fingertip or nail tapping? I like the crispness of this, doing it very gently, but this, I think the more flat sound is inherently more relaxing because it's more like raindrops. Try to make it like rain. And the next one I have is Mitch Albom's The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. And I read this in class in the 6th grade, and I really loved this book when we read it. This is like one of those books that you remember reading and you're like, wow, yes, I really loved reading in this moment. Because when I was younger, I don't know, just struggled with reading. But by middle school, I think I had kind of gotten a lot better at it, and I actually was reading books cover to cover for the first time and not just skimming through them. I don't know, I just didn't read books until I was a little older, for real, I feel like. And so actually reading a complete story, you're like, wow, that was really good. And this one's I feel pretty profound, because it talks about what happens when you die and stuff like that. And I feel like in the 6th grade you're kind of getting a grasp on these more mature conversations and topics. So this is a good one. From the author of the phenomenal international bestseller Tuesdays with Morrie comes this instant New York Times #1 bestseller. An enchanting, beautifully written novel about heaven and earth that has already touched millions around the world. Eddie is a grizzled war veteran who feels trapped in the toil of his father before him, fixing rides at a seaside amusement park. As the park has changed over the years, from the loop-the-loop to the pipeline plunge, so too has Eddie changed. From optimistic youth to embittered old age, his days are a dull routine of work, loneliness, and regret. Then, on his 83rd birthday, oh my gosh, can you imagine being a repairman into your 80s? Eddie dies in a tragic accident, trying to save a little girl from a falling cart. With his final breath, he feels 2 small hands in his, and then nothing. He awakens in the afterlife, where he learns that heaven is not a lush garden of Eden, but a place where your earthly life is explained to you by 5 people who were in it. These people may have been loved ones or distant strangers, yet each of them changed your path forever. One by one, Eddie's 5 people illuminate the unseen connections of his earthly life. As the story builds to its stunning conclusion, Eddie desperately seeks redemption and the still unknown last act of his life. Was it a heroic success? Was it a heroic success or a devastating failure? The answer, which comes from the most but the concept of this is definitely interesting to think about if that actually happened to you. Who would your 5 people be? Okay. The next is this one, Varjak Paw by SF Said. It's got a cute little cat on the cover, and that is Varjak Paw. And this is one of the ones, where I was talking about where I didn't really read books, but just kind of would try to read them and not be able to finish them ever. I think this is one of those books that I tried to read many times when I was a kid and never actually finished. So I feel like I should reread this now because I was kind of reading up on it and I'm like, I think I did get some of this. But basically it's about a house cat who has never been outside, and his owner has a boyfriend or something. Someone else moves into his house and they have 2 cats that kick him and his cat family out, and then they're out on the streets and they have to figure out how to survive in the streets, and there's a martial art of the cats that Barjack has to learn. And I do remember him learning the first martial art moves, so obviously I did read some of it. Got a lot of paperbacks, but I have a couple. I have two hardcovers, so we'll get some variety here in a second. Okay. Anyway, the one that I was going to show you is a true classically nostalgic book for a lot of people, I'm sure. The Hunger Games. This one's a hardcover. And I feel like most people are familiar with this, even if it is just the movies, because it was super popular. But I have all 3 books, but we're only going to take a look at this one. But we were talking about underrated series, well, maybe an overrated one. But honestly, this is a really good book series. And I remember when they cast Jennifer Lawrence as Katniss, and everyone was like, oh, who's that girl? And all thinking how popular she is or how famous she is. It's kind of funny. It was everybody who was really waiting for the movie to get cast was like, oh, who's that girl? But I hadn't seen these books in a long time, so I figured it was good to mention it. I remember waiting in line at the theater to see the premiere of all these movies. I mean, I think Netflix maybe existed at the time, but we still had to rely on movie theaters for new and exciting content. And obviously most people can relate to that unless you're very young, but I think most people that watch this are about my age based on the YouTube statistics that it spits out, so the Mockingjay. What does it say? In the ruins of a place once known as North America lies the nation of Panem, a shining capital surrounded by 12 outlying districts. The capital is harsh and cruel and keeps the districts in line by forcing them all to send one boy and one girl between the ages of 12 and 18 to participate in the annual Hunger Games, a fight to the death on live TV. 16-year-old Katniss Everdeen, who lives alone with her mother and younger sister, regards it as a death sentence when she steps forward to take her sister's place in the games. But Katniss has been close to death before, and survival for her is second nature. Without really meaning to, she becomes a contender. But if she is to win, she will have to start making choices that weigh survival against humanity and life against love. Okay. The last three are all by the same author. And I'll give you 2 guesses on who that author is. You ready? John Green. Because, come on, like, were you a teenager in the 2010s? Like, tell me you were a teenager in the 2010s without telling me. I think that John Green is the only author whose books I read every single one. But you know what? They are entertaining, especially for the teenage girl, so... the first one we have here is Paper Towns. Apparently I got a little deal on there. And this one got a movie, and John Green writes the most disappointing ending he possibly can in this one, where at the end where it's just like, yeah, she just ran away. She wasn't leaving clues for the main character at all. I mean, looking back on it, it makes sense. Like, she was just a girl and not like some fantasy he could chase. And honestly, it is a bold choice for the like genre that he's writing to not like play into that stereotype at all. But to me, at like 14 reading this, I'm like, oh, that's late. And you know, John was like, oh, I'm really doing something with this one. Really making a statement. Has anybody seen that like Tumblr post where it's like the most random name, random hobby, random this, that, like John Green spinning the wheel, this name, crazy name? And I'm like, yeah, because these names of these characters, Quentin Jacobson and Margot Roth Spiegelman. I love you, John Green. Kept middle school and high school me entertained, for sure. Next I have, by far his most popular book, The Fault in Our Stars, and I have a signed copy. And this is actually the first John Green book I ever read, because right when I found the Blog Brothers is when like this book was like coming out, because I remember one of his videos was like reading the first chapter and I was like, oh my god, I have to get this book. And I like did not know anything about anything like with the Blog Brothers fandom. Like, I didn't know to like look for the books with like the special drawings and stuff in there, because I think our bookstore had one with like the anglerfish in it. And if you never watched the Blog Brothers, I know you have no idea what I'm talking about either. But basically, some of these signed copies had like a rare drawing in them. And even though I knew the Blog Brothers, I didn't know to look for that, because I think there was another girl I went to school with that was like really into them. And she was like, oh, like you're reading this book because like I got it before, not to be like I got it before it was popular, but I did like get it before it was popular. So she was like, oh, you must be like a Vlog Brother super fan. And I was like, oh no, like I just started watching them. But then this book got super huge, so. And I actually, when I was reading this, if you're not familiar, it's about to teenagers with cancer. My grandma was actually diagnosed with cancer like while I was reading this book, so I was like, that always like sticks out in my mind that I was like halfway through this book when we found that out. So I think that's also why like John Green will also be close to my heart, because these books were there for me in a difficult time in my life. So, you know. And last but not least, perhaps his most controversial work, at least right now with so many southern states trying to ban a bunch of books. This book, Looking for Alaska, is one of them, because there is a scene with a sexual act in it, and it is apparently too racy for teenagers. But I don't know. It's a good book, and that is like such a small scene that is pretty forgettable, honestly. So I know that he's probably like, that's the stupidest thing ever, but it's kind of funny that a John Green book is on a banned book list, but it's true. I love this cover with the candle, though. It's very ASMR. And this was actually turned into a TV series that is decent. I watched it, and I was like, middle school me is freaking out right now. Honestly, I think I read this in high school, like freshman year, but so all around that, like 8th grade to the sophomore year period was my John Green phase, so it all just kind of blends together. Alright, well, that's my last book. Thank you for joining me for some tingles, and nostalgia. I enjoyed chatting with you about these books, and let me know if any of these were on your reading list as a teenager. Alright.